Today we're going to show you how to make your own kombucha. It's a kind of a fermented drink that we like to drink a lot. It's really healthy. It's got some really good scientific benefits for your stomach and some properties in it that help with certain things like cancer, and some people even say they've experienced weight loss with this drink. And it's something that we just started about 3 or 4 years ago, and I really like it. I like making it. It's a benefit for me because I had leaky gut syndrome, and it's really helped heal my stomach so that stuff doesn't get into my body and make me weak and tired, and it's something that I really like. We're gonna walk you through the process today so it can kind of help you think about maybe that's something that you want to make for you and your family. It's works really good with the children and with adults, so it's not just one age specific thing. And we're gonna make 2 types today. I've been on a roll with these 2 flavors, and I really like them to a point where I'm just going to kind of probably continue to work them until I wear it out and I don't like the taste anymore. So it's going to be a pomegranate, raspberry, and an orange zest with vanilla and honey. And so the ingredients we'll be using to make these 2 batches is water, and which is a gallon, and I use a quart jar because it helps me measure it a little bit better, and I don't have a gallon measure, and sugar and teas. And you want to be careful with the teas because you need 2 types. You need a black tea and a green tea, and they work really well with each other. And some people just do straight black. I haven't found a difference in taste yet because I haven't really experimented with just using the black, but they say that the black allows the fermentation in the yeast to be a little stronger. And so I haven't played with that yet, so I don't know the benefits of just using straight black. Or they don't recommend just all green because the green properties of the tea is a little bit different in the way the kombucha brews. And we use sugar, and we recommend a GMO-free option of sugar, which is, and make sure it's a cane and raw cane. I haven't been able to experiment yet with the difference between just plain raw sugar, or which is more brown, versus the white sugar, which is the white sugar is a little bit more processed. But I've read about the difference between the 2, and a lot of the people that brew kombucha out there, they say they like the white because it's a little bit better of a chemical balance for the way the yeast consumes it. And I like to use stainless steel. I try to stay away from aluminum. Glass is pretty good if you've got a big glass container to use to brew your water, because there's a process that you start with by boiling the water so your tea will brew or steep, and then you melt, or you put the sugar in to let it melt in the water as the water heats up, which is a very needed process for the way the enzymes in the process allows it to be consumed with the sugar. So we're going to move forward with the process and kind of show you how we do it, and I hope it helps you on deciding, or to helps you brew your kombucha better. So there's been some debate on the water usage of the kombucha. Some people say distilled's best. Some say that the purified water is best. So the reason why you don't want to use tap water or any kind of city water is because of the chemicals they use in the water. Soda ash and chlorine will kill your Scoby, and that's something that you don't want to do. I use 2 different types just out of a well because our water is really clean where we live, or out of our Berkey filter. And I like them both, and because in the well water, there's more minerals in it because our water is mineral rich, and with the Berkey filter, that kind of takes some of that out. So there is a little bit difference of a taste. So we're going to get started and show you through the process. So when you add your sugar, you want to add the full amount, which is 1 cup per gallon of water. The reason why you don't want to skimp on it is the fact that that's what feeds your Scoby. And your Scoby is what helps ferment the kombucha. And we added it to the water for it to melt, and not to the point of almost boil, but to the point where you start seeing the bubbles on the bottom. You make sure it's fully melted by stirring it, and then you give it a little bit for the bubbles to start forming again, and then you add your tea. So now that the tea has done steeping, we're going to allow it to cool for a little while, and you want it to stay at least no warmer or no cooler than room temperature, and maybe a little bit less. The reason why is because if you use the hot water and straight out of the pot and pour it into your Scoby, it will kill it. It will fry it, and you will no longer have the Scoby to start the brewing process.
So I wanted to show you a little bit about how we store our Scoby and also how that works with our sourdough. So it's very important that you keep storage spaces that are separate for your kombucha Scoby as well as your sourdough. Because they're both bacterias and they both get airborne, they're beneficial yeasts in them, and they're airborne, we want to make sure that they can't cross-culture with each other. So we keep our sourdough out away from the kombucha Scoby, and the sourdough also has a lid that stays on it. And then in our cupboard, we have a pull down here that allows us to have our crocks with our various Scobies in them, and it keeps those two cultures from contaminating each other. So Scoby stands for a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And these are all beneficial things, and often people are a little bit leery or wary of trying a kombucha because it looks like a mold. In fact, some people refer to it as a mushroom, and people think, oh man, you're going to feed me something that's moldy. But really, what's in these cultures are so beneficial to your body. We are talking bacteria and probiotics that are just going to help your gut work. It has great detox properties that are going to get into your cells and just take all that icky stuff out. And then beyond that, there are these beneficial acids that just help balance your system. We already mentioned that you don't want to skimp on the sugar, and that's because that's what makes our bacteria and yeast active. And that's going to actually be what makes it work in your body. Once the bacteria and yeast does its work in the fermentation process, there's actually very little sugar left in the final kombucha product. So all of these things working together are actually beneficial for multiple health issues, multiple future concerns in your body, and then just in general, just a nice homeostasis in your gut.
So as you make kombucha, your Scoby is going to grow, and it's just going to get thicker and more layers are going to be added to it. Eventually you're going to need to divide it, and you can either divide it
and pass it off to a friend, which we often do. We often have people looking for a Scoby, and so we'll pass it off to a friend. Or the other thing you can do is use it for other things. And there are many things a Scoby can be used for. They can be dehydrated and turned into dog treats, so your dogs get the benefit of the probiotics. They're actually a great living Band-Aid. If you ever had a burn or some sort of deep cut that you needed to get something on immediately because of the pH that the Scoby is at, it's very good and healing as a living bandage. And then just beyond that, you can stick them in a Scoby hotel, keep them. They can be turned into fruit leather, other treats that are just really good. Anything that you want to increase your probiotic amount in, that Scoby can be used for. So we really like to try to cultivate our Scoby, make sure it's in good health so that it can be used for many, many different things. While we wait for our tea to cool for today's batch, we wanted to show you our most recent batch that we recently pulled off of our Scoby. So we actually kind of do two fermentation processes. After a week of the tea being on the Scoby, as long as the pH is in the right spot, we can drink it, and it is something that'll be good and beneficial. But we like to let ours get a little stronger, and we like to let that yeast work a little bit more and the bacteria work a little bit more. So after about a week to 10 days with the Scoby, we drain off most of the tea that's in with the Scoby, and then we'll start that new batch like we're doing today. And then what we do with what we take off of the Scoby, we put them into jars, and then we put them in a dark place to ferment for another week or two. So as long as we are constantly making kombucha, we always have a batch ready to drink. This batch here has been sitting in a dark place. If you wanted to add fruit, this would be the place where you would do it right before you put it in a dark place for a week. Sometimes that will give it a little bit more of a carbonation, but we like the flavor just with these yummy teas, just the way it is. So right now we're getting ready to bottle this, and we'll stick it in the refrigerator. It will stop the fermentation process, it will stop the brewing process, and it'll just have it ready for us to drink and take with us in our lunches during the day.
So now that they're done steeping, you take them out and make sure you get all the juices out of each one of them. And the reason why I like doing this, because a lot of people will take it out before it's done, and I like doing it because it gets the full flavor of the tea. And I just kind of smush them out. And sometimes you'll get them to kind of pop. And if they do that, don't worry about it. You just use a funnel with a screen on it to sift out all the grains and the granules from the tea. It looks like we did a pretty good job of getting all these ones to stay together.
So I had to split this Scoby, and the reason why is because it's gotten really thick. You can see how thick this one is, and if you don't split them every once in a while, they'll kind of start taking over your jar. And you don't want it to do that. And sometimes people will buy these and sometimes they won't. And we'll put it in a jar, or we'll put it in a baggie and save it and see if there's anybody out there that might want to buy it or might want to have it. So now that we got all the tea bags out, I'm going to filter it with this little filter here. and pour it directly into the Scoby. As you can see now that it caught all the tea bag grounds, it won't be sitting directly in the Scoby as it's working and fermenting. And we let the water cool to that certain temperature that I mentioned earlier, that it's got to be a little cooler than room temperature so it won't kill our Scoby. And then we'll work the next one out and get it in with the Scoby.
So this is where the kombucha will hang out for a week, maybe a little bit more. It'll ferment with the Scoby in it, and we'll mostly let it be. The one other step that we have is about 24 hours to 48 hours after we put the kombucha into brew, we are going to check the pH, and we have these handy dandy Culture for Health pH strips, and what we're looking for is to make sure that our pH is somewhere between 2.8 and 3.2, and as long as we have our pH in that place, we will have a really good healthy brew. So thank you so much for joining us today. We have many more things ahead of us as spring arrives, some fun outdoor projects coming, and we look forward to sharing those with you. So to make sure you get to see our next few episodes, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button. Let us know how we're doing and what you'd like to see, because we want to make sure we're showing you what you want to see in our off-grid adventure. Thanks so much, guys. See you later.